Now what's it? There you go, look, bit of TE fans there. Oh, didn't see it there. Thomas Edward, it's me that is, and you find me sitting on the edge of a roundabout, I should say, in the north side of Leyland, and I'm sat on a Centurion tank. Tell you what, only northerners you can get a tank on the roundabout. You can't get it anywhere else in the world or anywhere else in the country. You have a tank, but I have a tank because this tank here, this Centurion tank, is made not very far from here, and in today's video I'm going to tell you about where they were made, where they were tested, and its history. So let's have a look round it, shall we? It's a bit of a drop. So I don't know if it's the original colour or if they just painted it like this, but it's very clean. I've seen older photos of it where it's all overgrown and it's got bushes all over it, and it's gone a bit rusty in places, but it's in about 2016, I believe it was moved. This roundabout here was widened and they moved it because there's old pictures of trees in the background and there's no trees now. So I think they've painted it and done it up, but it's had a few scuffs where people have been climbing up it, and there's a few bits of writing on it somewhere, but it's quite clean, you know. It's no metal thieves have been after it, you know, what you'd normally get somewhere in certain places. But so it's apparently a Centurion tank. Apparently it's 53 tons and it has 3 compartments in it, where it's got its main drive in, and it's got its gun in the middle, you know, the fighting bit, and it's got its engine and gearbox at the back. And to tell you the truth, I'm not really into killing machines. They're too much for me. I'm more interested in how it works as a machine, how, you know, all the gears and the engine works, and how all the tracks, you know, and how all this moves. And also, like I'm going to say, a new video coming up about how walls can talk. How can tanks talk? What's that seen? What faces has it seen? What continents has it seen? Because, you know, a Centurion tank, apparently, I think it worked in the Korean War in the 1950s all the way up to the 90s in the first Gulf War. So, but it wasn't just like one tank's done all those wars. There was like 13 different versions of it. You know, like it's like having the Mark 1 Transit, the Mark 2, Mark 3, Mark 4. Yeah, it's different versions of it. But you know, they've seen quite a lot of action, and apparently they're a bit of an industry standard. You know, when I was doing music when I studied music, I was a bass guitarist, and the industry standard when you're a bass guitarist is the Fender Precision, and that's what everyone goes to. That's what Motown was built on. So this is pretty much what Leyland was built on in tanks, and what pretty much a lot of wars were built on is a Centurion tank. It's pretty interesting. So we'll have a look round it and see what we can see. But the backstory in the Centurion tank is, in the Second World War, the Brits were getting hammered by the German tanks, what at that time was the Panther tank. They had nothing what would, you know, compete against it in combat. So they said, right, we need a frontline tank, a cruiser tank, what can travel over quite a lot of terrain and be more armoured and be quite speedy in a way, but also, you know, compete against the rival of the Panther tank. So 2 years later, they went back in 1945 with the prototype Centurion tank, but by then it was too late. The Second World War was finished, and the Centurion tank never saw battle. So it's got all this protection on the side of it, so I suppose all its tracks, it can't get messed up when stuff goes into it, or it's got blasts, you know, and it's armoured. It's quite thick. Well, it's not fairly thick, but I think it's more protection for the tracks more than armour, because the armour seems to be on here. It's like a big lump of cast, and look at all that, that's all cast as well. Big solid lump of cast. Look, it's a peekaboo hole there. Probably put his gun through there. And British Leyland, you know, many jokes come from British Leyland, and I think that's one of them. There's a bit of rust there. You know, you'd think, you think that'd be armoured with a load of thing, but it's it's a bit of Centurion tank rust there. And then round here, got another. This is the back of the tracks. We've got an exhaust here. Look, it's all pitted, and in there apparently is the engine somewhere. In that, there's probably an engine hatch on top, and then it's got like carriers for stuff in here. And there, that's an old light, two-way light. That would be red on that, and it probably had a white one on front because there's another bulb, but it's missing in there. And it's got like attachments in it here for stuff, shovels and axes, like what military Land Rovers had. They always had a few shovels on them. And then it's all got its towing equipment. But these here, these big eyes from being a Land Rover enough, this is when it'd be transported on ships. When they'd lift it onto the deck of ships, or a bit like a twin exhaust classic BM. Now there's two exhausts on it. I wonder what engine it's got in it, but anyway, at the front it's got its quad lamps. A bit like an MGZR, that quad lamps. Two lamps on it, and it's got a spare track there. Look, spare track. It's pretty tasty bit of kit, That's its barrel right up there. I forgot about that bit. See, I'm not really into tanks because I forgot it had a big gun on the front of it. It's all a bit rusty underneath. I don't think you could deal with much bomb blasts underneath there. What? There's a biro pen underneath there. Well, you can see all tank gears, foot tracks. It's pretty mad, that. So up here, I've just found there's a little plate here. It's almost like a chassis plate. 1959, and then it has a plate and then a number. So that's probably its chassis number, or unless it's a body number or something like that. Approved. It's like a chassis number. The chassis numbers never make much sense. They mean something, but only to people who really know. It probably. I wonder what mark it is. If this is a 59, this probably could be a Mark II or something like that. Because apparently the Mark 1s were developed in the war, in the Second World War, and then the Mark 2s were after the war in the 50s, apparently. So this could be a Mark II. And then up behind me is a big whopper of a barrel of a gun. Don't know what's that about. 20 foot long. It's a beauty. What a beauty. And then there's I think there's like a machine gun bit here. And then I think these are these mortars, where you put your mortars in there, I think. No idea, to be honest, but that's what I can sort of work out what they are. And then the driver being there, down there. That's where the driver would be, stick his head out of there. When he was driving, when he wasn't getting shot at, he'd be with his head out of there. And then there'd be some sergeant or whatever they called in the army, some colonel up the top there in his hatch, sticking out with his helmet on and probably his radio or whatever. Whoa, it's Thomas Edward. I'm on the back now. I'm just looking at the top of the engine. Oh, the big hatches come back where we could look at the engine. I wish it was open because that'd be a lot more interesting. Now, to TE fans, that'd be a lot more interesting looking down there. What's it? Hey, go look. Bit of TE fans there. I'm famous, you see. I'm known all the way around the UK. No, I think they were just beefing because there was a man on top of a tank with a camera and a tool talking to it. I think that's what it was about. But anyway, yeah, I'm looking at back here and you could stand on here. It's got a few where you can fuel up, and I'm at the back of the tank. It's pretty good. I wish you could get in and have a look inside. I wonder if it's all been stripped out inside, or is it still intact and you've just welded it shut? You know, that'd be interesting to see. Be interesting to find one of these where we can actually look inside of it in a museum somewhere. That'd be good. It's powered by a Rolls-Royce Merlin V12 with about 600 horsepower, and that in today's horsepower, you can get a Range Rover Sport S3R with 550 horsepower. You know, and that's only got 50 more than it. So that's pretty much where how much power you can sort of like compare it against nowadays. We should really go now and show you where they were built and apparently where some test grounds were, where they were tested, like they would be out in the battle, so they probably had a few swamps and going up a few big hills and stuff, so we're going to find that, I think. So I've come over from the tank, we'll come inland a bit to where they were built, and we're actually stood now on Centurion Way. So the road's actually named after the tank. And behind me here, look, there's the road sign, Centurion Way. So that's a sign for you to prove where I am. And behind me is all the way down past the camera, all the way past the back of me, is all the works where the tanks were made. And then when they were finished building the tanks and all shiny before they went onto the war zone, they drove across the road, and over there somewhere in that shrubland there's a pond, but it used to be all wasteland, and in there is where they tested them. So they drive them over big hills and probably fill water and stuff to test them out, you know, to give them a full going over before they went out, because they didn't want them to fail, you see. You know, they wanted to know everything was all tight and it worked how it should, you know, all the tracks worked and they weren't spitting tracks off. So that was the test ground over there. But apparently when they were getting built, the men of the work said every month someone lost a hand or a finger. So the nickname of the tank was the Fingerless Phantom, because you always lose a hand. That's quite a vicious sort of tank, I think. There must be quite a few I don't know, they were just a bit of a vicious tank to build, I think. You know, it's not an easy job. Those lads had, you know, they had a lot to do, really. You know, they had the wits about them when, you know, Fingerless, you know, because they didn't want to turn up the next day with just one hand, because you can't build a tank with one hand, can you? But anyway, so they drive them across there and they test them. But when they first put the tank factory in here, after the war, 1953, they put the tank factory in, and the government owned it all the way up to 1956. And then after 56, Leyland bought it, and Leyland expanded it even more. And just behind us is Lancaster House, and Lancaster House is Leyland's headquarters, because they had so many people working for them. They would have draftsmen and all drawing, designing everything. They'd have people on reception, all sorts of people in Lancaster House. So it's quite a big area around here, but I think it's an area what's disappeared. So this is the end of the Thomas Edward video with the Centurion tank. You know, we've learnt many things, how it works and where it was built and where it was tested. You know, we've had a good mooch around it. So we've had a good mooch and looking at all the turrets and stuff, and it's been a grand day. It's been a grand day with TE. And make sure you subscribe and give me a like and comment. So, you know, do you know about the Centurion tank, or have you worked on it, or have you seen them get built or whatever, you know, or I bet you know where this is. And so leave us a comment as always, and remember to click that big bell. Ding!